Hey YouTube, got a power steering return line slash cooler for a 2008 Buick Lucerne. Let's go see if we can get this thing wrenched on. So YouTube, let's do a little diagnosis first. What I think is happening is this fitting right here, this plastic thing that holds on, this is the power steering loop right here, is what's happened over time is the metal has obviously corroded, but also because you have this mass up here, you have maybe a little vibration, a little bit of stress reversal going on, and I believe that this power steering hose tube has cracked right here next to this fitting. In fact, I can kind of see what I think is the crack. Now, how does this manifest itself on the ground? Well, let me show you. So you get these pretty consistent spots in the driveway, depending on who's parking, closer to the garage or whatever. But let's look under the car real quick. All right, right there in the middle of the frame, this is the cradle front cross member. It's going left to right across the vehicle. There's the passenger wheel, driver wheel over there. As you can see, there's an obvious drip forming right there. And also this hole here, as you can see, is wet. I ruled out engine oil because I don't see any way engine oil can get up there to it. And also I ruled out transmission fluid, even though there are transmission lines that run roughly above this cross member. I believe it is the power steering line because it is the most corroded, and I don't see anything else that would indicate a problem. Plus, the power steering reservoir is low. Alright guys, coming from the power steering rack up here, we'll get that in a minute. There are a couple of wire ties with the call them fir trees or Christmas tree ties that you push in here to the engine cradle. This is the passenger side. There's one there, and it looks like there's another one over there. We'll go ahead and pull those out with probably a plastic pry bar. Okay YouTube, got a couple of these little thingamajigs. There's room for two pieces of hard tubing to go through them, one up high where my screwdriver is and one down low. All I did was just kind of get a screwdriver behind in action. Just pull it apart and there you go, there's your tube exposed. Okay YouTube, looky, we're getting it pretty loose now. I think the only thing left to go is the supply side of the power steering pump, then of course the return side of the steering rack. Up there, somewhere behind the transmission pan and the cross member. It's there, trust me. Okay guys, right there at the middle of the frame, that is the fitting on the power steering reservoir where the return hose goes in. It's one of those silly little metal clamps, and I loosened up my power steering pump. It's two bolts with a 13mm head, hex head. So use an extension or a deep well to get them. Loosen the pump up. Take the belt off first, and then you can disconnect that return line. What a chore. Okay, Team YouTube. Got two fittings there. The one in the middle of the frame and the one above it. And yes, the one above it is the one you got to get. What I used was an 18mm crow foot on a little 3/8 inch breaker bar. And yes, it's difficult. And yes, I know you could actually, drop the subframe, loosen the cradle bolts and drop this thing down and make it very accessible. I just chose to do it the long way just because I don't feel like dropping the cradle tonight. So when I say drop the cradle, I can see people, you loosen all the bolts, you drop the rear bolts, it gives you a few inches of purchase behind this bulkhead right here, and then it's, no sweat, right? Well, I'm just gonna do it the hard way. All right, Team YouTube. No lie, this is a tight squeeze. There's my little 3/8 little breaker bar handle, and above that, the lower fitting there is the on that upper fitting is my 18mm crow foot. That's an enclosed crow foot. It's not a straight crow foot, so is good or better than a flare nut wrench. And yeah, no lie, that is tight in there, and it did take me a good 20 minutes to get it spun on and then get it down to where I thought it was snug, but I could actually feel it snug up. So this is not, some bogus method. All right, next up, let's see. But I did that first, and then I ran the, I didn't put it tight, but I ran it around to the rest of the places where it ties in. So there we are there, coming across the subframe, tied in right there, tied in right there. Before you do that, make sure you shove the rubber hose kind of up towards the power steering pump. If you try to do it afterwards, this hook right here, the hard line, that'll thwart your progress. And I got that back on too. Oh, oil filter. Hey Team YouTube, it's a couple nights later. Finally got enough beer in me and enough courage to come out and finish the job. So the replacement hose just pops onto the return side of the power steering pump. Power steering pump is still not bolted back up. I'm not going to use the constant tension clamp that came as original equipment on this vehicle, and I'm going to elect to use a hose clamp instead. Okay, right in the center of the frame there's the little, what is that, 1/2 or 3/4 inch small hose clamp holding on the return line. And there's the pulley it's back in. I had to jack up the car and start the lower bolt first. The 2 power steering pump bolts are at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Use a big hole, feed it through. It's a total pain trying to get those holes lined up, but it's easier to start with the bottom one first. Thanks. Hey Team YouTube. So we're getting close to the end. We gotta just put some power steering fluid in. Of course, being in a household that has 6 cars, none of which are newer than 12 years old, we go through lots of fluids around here. And to put it in, I have my own custom-made mini beer bong. Yes, this is the unfun beer bong. And we'll go ahead and rig it up and add some fluid. Okay, the mini beer bong in the power steering fluid reservoir. Fill cap hole there. We're gonna try filling it up there. We'll see what happens. Okay, Team YouTube, just as a reminder how the belt goes back on. Here's the alternator pulley. There's the idler. Push the wrench back towards the firewall, breaker bar, whatever you got. The belt goes straight down. Power steering pump comes up and around the idler, does a 1/2 turn around the water pump, and then 3/4 of a wrap around the dampener. And then down there, it goes around the, wow, that is hard to see. Yeah, there we go. Air conditioning compressor.